Welcome to the Arctic. I'm here with a dream to capture one photograph. One photograph that can visualize the impact of the climate crisis on our world. We're going to steal this boat a little bit later and try to recreate this photo from 1872, taken by a guy called Axel Enwall, a photographer on the Nordenskiöld expedition that I spoke about the other night. Axel's photo was taken on 18 July 1873 and my photo 11 June 2023, almost exactly 150 years apart to the day. Just interrupting the video here very briefly so I can introduce myself. My name is Jonas Paurell. I'm a full-time nature photographer. I'm the founder of Terra Photography Expeditions. I'm absolutely crazy about conservation storytelling and conservation photography. I travel throughout the entire year to some of the world's most hard-to-reach places to capture and tell stories. Stories that promotes the conservation of wilderness, of wild spaces. And for me personally, there is nothing more important that I can do as a nature photographer than try to promote the protection of the world that I love so much. In 2022, I set out to cross Svalbard on skis. With me was an amazingly brave team, consisting of a glaciologist, a climate researcher, 2 filmmakers and another guide. Our mission was to, well, as much as was possible in 2022, to recreate an expedition from 1872 to 1873, where Swedish Professor A.E. Nordenskiöld and his team attempted to be the first to reach the North Pole, something that they failed to do. But instead of just giving up and going home, they dedicated their expedition to scientific research. We decided to try to recreate this expedition, as their route is today in the zone where we can see some of the most dramatic melting of the Arctic. It is crucial to document the climate crisis and its effects on our world. On the expedition in 2022, I was dreaming about recreating one of the images from 1872 or 1873, but I never got the chance. So Axel Enwall, he did most of his photography up in northwest Svalbard, an area that is definitely not easy to reach. I'd been dreaming about finding an opportunity to get to this place for a long time, but I didn't think it would be possible without me spending quite a lot of my annual budget on this. But as luck time comes, a couple of months ago, I was talking to Thomas Heaton and he invited me to join the pro team on a photography expedition going to exactly that area. So I couldn't believe my luck and naturally I accepted that offer immediately. I packed my gear, grabbed my bags and off I flew all the way to Svalbard and the adventure could begin. On arrival in Svalbard, I met up with my old friend Thomas Heaton and 2 new friends, Brendan Van Sun and Neil Arthurs. And I owe Neil Arthurs, by the way, a big thank you, because most of the footage that you see in this video is actually filmed by Neil Arthurs. The Polar Pioneer, an old Soviet research vessel, ready to take us into the deep Arctic. Fully kitted, Zodiacs, expedition leaders, great food, great company, good beer and good whiskey. It had everything that we wanted.
It's always just a bit awkward until I say hello, so feel free.
Following embarkation, I found out that instead of going north towards Axel Enwall's photos, we were actually going south, away from the locations that I wanted to see. As usual on expeditions, things didn't exactly go according to plan.
This might be the end of the trip. The engines have failed and we've had to return back to Longyearbyen. This is not good news.
But the big problem is there's no engineers in town.
The plan to head south was interrupted. Unless they could find an engineer who knew how to repair an old Soviet ship, our journey would be over. No photography, no adventures, no nothing. After 24 nervous hours in Longyearbyen, the ship was fixed. But our delay in Longyearbyen meant that the original plan to head south was no longer possible. Instead, we had to head north towards Smeerenburg Fjord and Axel Enwall's photos. We're going to steal this boat a little bit later and try to recreate this photo from 1872, taken by a guy called Axel Enwall, a photographer on the Nordenskiöld expedition that I spoke about the other night. And as you can see, well, behind us right there, it's a way away. I would head for the print there. There is actually a so you include the rounded bit and just a little bit below it, so like this. So this is 151 years ago exactly. Oh, this is perfect. Great. That's really exciting. Happy? Very happy. It's been so our original plan for the expedition was to come up here via boat, but the boat in the end was way too expensive for our expedition buddies. We ended up coming up with snowmobiles instead, and with that we missed this opportunity. So yeah, super happy. Why should we care about the melting polar regions? First, let me say that I'm not a climate scientist. I'm just a layman, so this is my simplified description. Permanent ice covers about 11% of our world. And in addition to that, we have the seasonal snow and ice. Due to the climate crisis, the polar regions are warming incredibly fast right now. And the polar regions are incredibly important for our planet, as they function as the planet's air conditioner. First, the ice and snow functions as huge reflectors, sending much of the sun's energy back into the space. And as the ice melts, it exposes water and land. Water and land, as a contrast to the ice, absorbs the sun's energy. And that means that with the ice gone, the warming escalates. Second, the ocean currents that we have on planet Earth distributes much of the warm water into the Arctic and Antarctic regions. When it gets there, it gets cooled down, and cool water is then recirculated around the world. And this is great for our planet because this limits the warming, not just in the Arctic regions, but on the whole planet. So now that the polar regions are warming and melting, we are basically at risk from screwing up the climate and the ecosystem that supports human life. And this is really why the image that I took on this journey, visualizing the melting in the Arctic region from 1873 to 2023, 150 years apart, is so incredibly important. The result, the image, is freaking terrifying. This here, what you can see right now, is the original image photographed by Axel Enwall in 1873. You can see here, there's three figures sitting in the foreground on the beach. I photographed this, my version of this image, exactly here. So maybe 50 meters from the original location where the Axel Enwall stood, 1873. I'm now going to overlay my own image to this image. And you can see as I turn this on and off, there's a huge difference in the glacier. To make it easier to see, I've done an overlay of Axel Enwall's glacier on top of my image. And you can see that there is a dramatic difference in ice. Not only has the ice retreated and the glacier retreated, but it's also the volume. You can see that the ice, the mass of ice up here on the main glacier as well, is significantly different. Part of these mountain outcroppings are gone on Axel's photo. If we, instead of looking at this image now, head over to a map. So if we take the measurement tool and we can say that it comes down to this, zoom in a bit more, comes down here, the outcroppings, right? So we can see that the glacier then was from here to somewhere here to maybe around here, 1.43 kilometers. Resetting that tool, we can see that it went from here to approximately this area, 1.46 kilometers. That's the ice that is now missing 150 years later. That's approximately 2 square kilometers of ice missing. But it's not just that we're missing these square kilometers, it's the volume that we're missing. We're missing all the ice that was in the water. We're missing all the ice that was up on land. Because this is just one example. We're talking about hundreds of glaciers, maybe even thousands of glaciers across this archipelago of islands, right? And all of these glaciers are disappearing. Because it's not just Svalbard, it's the ice sheet, but it's melting. It's the ice on Greenland that is destabilizing and melting rapidly. And it's of course not just in the Arctic, it's also in the Antarctic. We can see the absolutely crazy difference between now and then. This is perhaps one of the most important images that I've ever captured, because it actually shows the difference. It shows the impact of the climate crisis, the melting Arctic. I will be sharing this image with the climate scientists that were with me on the Jubilee expedition. I'm going to try to see if I can get them to share a message of what they think of this. I want to share stories and images so that other nature photographers around the world can document their own conservation stories. Because I believe that we, nature photographers, the lovers of nature, we have the capacity, the ability to inspire people around the world with our images, but we also have a responsibility to tell stories that really matter. And that's what I want to do here. I would love to hear what you think about the images and the retreating glaciers. Please feel free to write as much as you want in the comments, and I will read everything, I promise, and I will answer as many comments as I can. This is my journey. Welcome, and I look forward to interacting with you guys in the future as well.